Hello, Sis D, and I'm back with another video. And today we have the second day of the FTC versus Microsoft hearing. And today we're going to hear from a host of people. We're going to hear from Phil Spencer. We're going to hear Jim Ryan, Sony's PlayStation chief, via deposition. We're going to hear from Dov Zimmering, Google's former Stadia product lead. It's going to be a day of great testimony. Now, the second day starts off with Phil Spencer on the stand. And I got to tell you guys, he was being grilled, and don't worry, some of the stuff that was revealed today was mind-blowing. I don't know who the FTC is trying to make their case for, because everything that they try to do only makes Sony look worse. And I gotta be honest with you guys, it's really evident that the FTC is protecting Sony's interests. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on in this case, the evidence, you can't deny it. You can go on Twitter and say otherwise, but deep down inside, you know that it's true, because the truth is the truth. And the evidence, it just does not support what the FTC said. Now, we're going to go with the Verge.com coverage today, courtesy of Tom Warren. I'll leave a link in the description down below so you guys can check it out for yourself. Now, he goes on to say that today's testimony, we're going to hear from the heads of both PlayStation, Xbox, and Google's former Stadia product lead. It's going to be a busy day. And these are the people I said before, Phil Spencer, Jim Ryan, Dov Zimmering. These are the people that will testify. Now, they start off today with Phil Spencer actually on the stand. Now, I guess first the lawyer, he's a senior finance director at Xbox. He's appearing in front of Judge Corley as she's sealing the courtroom. Oh, that's right. So this part here, it was completely blanked out in court. It's all confidential information. I guess it has something to do with the finances. And it took about 45-50 minutes before the court actually came back. So we don't have any information on this. We don't know how it went, obviously, because we were not privy to the conversation. However, like I said, Phil Spencer, he did arrive in court. Apparently, he was wearing a suit and tie, looking quite dapper, and he was gonna be in for one today. I knew that right off the bat, and man, did he get grilled. I'm gonna give you a little bit of spoilers here. The lawyer that is representing the FTC, because everything doesn't come through on text, right? I'm listening to the case, right? You're hearing my recounting of the case, right? I'm telling you, this lawyer, his attitude, it was awful. He was almost badgering the witness. He was very aggressive. At one point in time, the judge kind of had to say, hey, slow down, ask him a little bit nicer. Like, it was just out of pocket, his whole tone and demeanor. And I think he was trying to be the bad cop. It's like the good cop, the bad cop. He was trying to be the bad cop. And to Phil's credit, he kept his cool, and boy, was he asked a host of questions. Okay, so let's just get into it. Okay, so the FTC lawyer is making like some little errors by calling the ecosystem by the wrong name. He goes beyond Phil Spencer being questioned about the revenue splits on the Xbox creators and Microsoft and those on PC. And when this was going on, so the split basically is 70%, 30%. So Microsoft gets 30%, the publisher, the developer, whatever, they get 70% of the profits. When it comes to Game Pass, he was trying to put this in with Game Pass too. So he's like, oh, so how's it working Game Pass? You guys, kind of insinuating that Microsoft gets more of the take. And Microsoft was like, we don't get anything from Game Pass. It's from the game in Game Pass when it's being played. It's part of the service. We pay a fee, an upfront fee for the game to be in the service. However, if somebody chooses to buy that game, it's still the 70-30% split. And once again, the FTC's lawyers throwing stuff at the wall, just trying to see what will stick, grasping at straws. And I think this is going to be the whole theme of this trial, because they have no evidence, and it's so apparent. And I got to be honest, once again, listening to this guy talk about certain things, I could tell he knows nothing about the console business, knows nothing about gamers. FTC doesn't think the Nintendo Switch should be counted in the market that the Xbox operates in. It has been a source of debate between Microsoft and the FTC. Now the FTC is grilling Spencer about the Switch. The Switch was designed for people to take on the go, Spencer says. It has a battery, it's a mobile platform, people can take it with them. Whereas the Gen 8 Xbox One console requires that they plug it into the wall and don't have a screen. Nintendo built a different platform. but the FTC reads Spencer's previous testimony back to him in terms of CPU and GPU, and would be more akin to a Gen 8 device, said Spencer previously. Then the lawyer moved on to how many FPS does the Xbox Series X and S have? Do you know what a teraflop is? It was just ridiculous. And if you were listening to this in real time, you'd be like, what is this guy talking about? Yes, the Switch is less powerful than the Xbox Series X, but it doesn't mean that it can't run current games. Some of the games, yes, it can't run, or it would have to get a much stripped down layer of that game. It's still a current generation console. It just doesn't have the same power and performance as the Series X and PlayStation 5. Yet, it's selling gangbuster numbers. Its units are flying off the shelf. The software sales are excellent. The Legend of Zelda, the latest one, Tears of the Kingdom, is selling like crazy. So that just lets you know that the FTC doesn't have any type of grasp on the gaming community or how that business really works. They're just being lawyers. I'm just being honest. Now, he goes on to say that the FTC is now asking Phil Spencer about a bunch of redacted documents related to the market analysis and metrics that's shared with the Microsoft board. There's a scorecard, which includes 4 metrics for performance. The argument here is that Microsoft only compares the Xbox against PlayStation internally, but that it's trying to compete with Nintendo Switch with the regulators to put itself in 3rd place in the market. The FTC wants to prove that this is a high-performance console market, that the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series S and X, and it's not relevant to the market, and that includes the Switch. Interestingly, one of the documents includes Microsoft's Xbox Series S and X market share, and that will almost certainly be redacted from the public view. Now, the reason why they're going so hard on the Nintendo Switch, because in their closing arguments, they want to say, listen, Microsoft is lying here. Call of Duty is never coming to the Switch because it's not capable of running on the Switch. That's what they're aiming at. That's what they're trying to paint a picture of here. So they're slowly trying to chip away at it. But we all know that Call of Duty, in its current form, most likely couldn't run on the Nintendo Switch. But there's a mobile version. Also, they can strip certain stuff out of it. Now, if you guys want my honest take on this, on why I know it is coming to the Nintendo Switch, is because there's going to be a new Nintendo Switch console. Microsoft is not able to talk about it. Nintendo certainly is not going to talk about it. But this Call of Duty deal is for their next Nintendo Switch. I think one will probably come out next year, or maybe the year after that. I'm not quite sure. But I know it's going to be aimed at that Switch. And perhaps the current Switch, Microsoft will allow a version of the cloud to be played on it. I do believe Microsoft on their commitment here. They're not going to lie to Nintendo and say you can get COD and it's not going to pair on their system. And if these guys would do a little bit more research, they would come with some better arguments, some evidence that has merits, that holds weight to it. All the stuff that they're saying, it's just nonsense. It's a bunch of nonsense. I feel like I'm watching Telenovo or whatever you call those Spanish soap operas, and it's like a really corny court scene. That's how I see this case right now, at least the way the FTC is representing itself. It's a joke. Okay, let's get back into it. So he does a recap. He says they're on a 15-minute break. The FTC has been grilling Phil Spencer over the console market share. He admits that the Xbox is more competitive in the US with Sony than in Europe. We can't see any documents or references to the questioning, but it's all about Microsoft's internal competition analysis and performance metrics. The FTC wants to prove it's a high-performance definition of the console market. Just Xbox and PlayStation is correct. Microsoft wants to include Nintendo Switch, but the FTC argues that its internal analysis doesn't always compare against the Switch. And like I said, Phil, he gave excellent answers. I really need to go through the entire transcript. It is so hard to give you guys the complete rundown of everything that happened in court. That's why sometimes I cover Florian's page, because he goes into depth. But when I'm making a video, it's just really hard to tell you every detail. So I suggest, obviously, that you follow Florian Mueller on Twitter. I'll link it in the description down below. Follow Tom Warren on Twitter. Follow him at The Verge, where you can get a more detailed information on the case. Now, when they came back from break, wow, this is where the fireworks happened. This case, I'm telling you guys, this case is just crazy. The information that comes out, the way this is all playing, like I knew it would play out like this, but to see it in real time and how Sony is being painted by the FTC itself, because Phil Spencer has some key answers here today that really show you what Sony is all about. Okay, so let's get back into it. So the FTC lawyer is asking if Microsoft Gaming lost the console wars. As the console wars is a social construct with the community, I would never want to count us out with our fans, said Spencer. We're in third place. We are behind Sony and Nintendo in console share locally. Now, this was Phil Spencer's answer. As the console wars is a social construct with the community, I would never want to count the community out. They're big fans. If you look at our market share in the console space over the last 20 plus years, we're in third place. And once again, this is Phil Spencer, Microsoft, their representation, painting the picture that they are not the market leaders. And if you know the law, like I've been telling you guys, you cannot protect the market leader. Even if half of the things that they're saying are true about Microsoft, it's okay because they're trying to compete. It's not illegal for them to try to compete. It is illegal for the market leader to prevent the competitors from competing. And today we get a lot of evidence that shows Sony plays dirty. Basically, all the stuff that we know or that we've been knowing has been exposed today in court with some key answers from Phil Spencer. I'm so excited. I gotta get into it. All right, so Phil Spencer sees Sony as an aggressive competitor. Do you view Sony as an aggressive competitor? Asked the FTC. Sony is the market leader with considerable capability and aggressive competitor. This was said by Phil Spencer. Every time we ship a game on PlayStation, Sony captures 30% of the revenue that we do on their platform and then use that money among other revenue that they have to do things to try to reduce Xbox survival in the market. Phil Spencer said this in court, under oath. We try to compete, but as I said, over the last 20 years, we failed to do that effectively. This was like, boom, drop the mic moment. You know, everybody running around saying, oh, losing their minds. That was a big moment, man. And it showed the courts, it showed the judge what Sony does. And the FTC, they could not dispute it because it's the truth. Next, the FTC was questioning Phil Spencer about AAA content and the need for it. Is it your view that Microsoft needs a predictable cadence of AAA content for your services? I think our customers need content that they know ships dates for investment in our platform. Yes, this was said by Spencer. He also agrees that Microsoft needs this type of content to drive acquisition of users for Xbox. The FTC is also pushing Spencer on how many AAA games come out each year. Obviously, these are a small portion in the overall market, as there are a lot more indie games. And later on, he really gets into the weeds of this, basically saying, listen, man, Sony has the most exclusives. Nintendo has more exclusives than us. We have the least amount of exclusives in the market. And the console market is a space where exclusives matter. Every company has their own exclusive games. And this is what determines what console the consumer buys. They might buy a PlayStation because it has the most exclusives, or they buy the Nintendo Switch because it has the exclusives they want. We are behind in this territory. And once again, you cannot protect the market leader, and that's what the FTC is doing here. I don't understand how this is happening. Everybody at the FTC, they need to be fired. Two American companies agree to do business together, and you're out here fighting for a Japanese company. Make it make sense. It's disgraceful, honestly. That's my opinion. That's my 2 cents. You could disagree with that. You can say I'm out of pocket, but I'm just calling it like I see it. All right, let's get more into it. They move on to Call of Duty, and the FTC is now questioning Phil Spencer about Call of Duty and negotiating deals with Activision around the launch of the console in 2020. A document mentions the revenue split offered, and we went into that yesterday, that there was a dispute, and Activision says, listen, unless you give us a better cut, we're not going to ship the game on the Xbox. And Microsoft couldn't have their Xbox Series consoles launch without such a big game, and that game also to be on the PlayStation 5. So they renegotiated and they got an 80-20 split. Okay, so the document mentions the split, and Activision wanted a better split to work for the Xbox Series X optimized versions. The FTC is trying to establish the idea of Microsoft acquiring content so it doesn't have to pay these fees and they can have exclusive content. If you own the content, don't you have to pay for the exclusive content? Asked the FTC. We don't pay for exclusivity on our own content, says Spencer. He does note that Sony apparently signs deals to keep third-party games off of Xbox. So he threw a shot in there. He says, no, man, we don't pay for exclusivity on our own platforms. But Sony, they sign deals to keep third-party games off Xbox. Just saying. Now, he goes on to say when a competitor is actively signing third-party games to skip our platform, it becomes more important to us to secure third-party games on our platform, inclusive of Call of Duty. So that just backfired in the FTC's face. Once again, throwing stuff at the wall, seeing what will stick, grasping at straws. It's ridiculous. Microsoft has already considered skipping PlayStation for Activision content. Now, this is what the FTC was suggesting, and they asked, have you had conversations at Microsoft about skipping PlayStation with Activision titles? Now, Phil Spencer responded, I don't remember a specific conversation, but it would seem like a normal conversation for us to have. These conversations were part of an evaluation of Activision Blizzard ahead of the proposed acquisition announcement. Microsoft measured the economic and strategic value of an acquisition. The FTC wants to know whether an asset could have strategic value outweighs the economics. So would Microsoft do something like make Activision games exclusive to Xbox as a strategic play, even if the economics might not make sense? He said there isn't value on this. It's more of a commentary on how the assets fits the strategy that we have. There's no numeric value assigned. So they're trying once again to say, hey, well, it doesn't make sense to remove Call of Duty off of the PlayStation, but would you remove Call of Duty off the PlayStation if it didn't make economic sense? Like, what do you think he's going to say? You think he's going to say, yeah, I would? And honestly, Call of Duty, once again, if they did their homework, they would know that Call of Duty is a #1 franchise. It makes so much money. Removing it off the PlayStation would not be good for the brand. It would not be good for the company. It would not be good for their investment, for them to get a return on it. I know some people say, oh, put it on Xbox, you're going to sell more Xboxes. Listen, maybe it would sell some more Xboxes. It's never going to make up for those millions of users that you don't have access to on the PlayStation. Now, they go on to say, considering only shipping Minecraft Dungeons on the Xbox and PC. The FTC references a chat between Phil Spencer and former Xbox CMO Mike Nicholas, were both considering and agree it should be exclusive to Xbox. Now, yeah, I think they were thinking about it. And of course, it's on a game-by-game basis. They have to look and see what makes sense. And like I said earlier, exclusives matter on what console gamers decide to buy. And anyways, Phil just basically responded saying, yeah, we talked about it, we thought about it, but in the end, we released it on everything. And Minecraft is like such a big theme of the FTC. I don't understand it. Minecraft is on the PlayStation. It plays well. It generates a lot of revenue. Sony is happy about it. Sony is so happy about it that they sent Microsoft, whoever makes the game or did the deal with them, sent them a custom console, whatever, man. But anyways, Sony held back the PlayStation 5 dev kits for Microsoft and Minecraft. Now, this was a bombshell that Sony actually held back the PlayStation 5 dev kits. Minecraft still doesn't have an optimized version for the PlayStation 5. It appears that Sony's decision to hold back sending Microsoft PlayStation 5 dev kits ahead of its launch is the reason why. Sony was reluctant to ship PlayStation 5 dev kits. It put us behind our development for Minecraft on PlayStation 5. This is what Phil Spencer said. Now, the FTC says that Microsoft fought back by still not providing an optimized version of Minecraft on the PlayStation 5 nearly 3 years later. Now, I don't really play Minecraft, so maybe you guys can correct me in the comment section on the live stream, or I should say the live chat, but I don't even think the Xbox Series X and S have an optimized version of that game either. I'm not mistaken. I think they play a backwards compatible game that's just, updated to work and, unlock certain things for the Xbox Series X and S. I'm not completely sure on that. Also, Phil Spencer basically said that Minecraft on the PlayStation 5 runs the PlayStation 4 version of the game and that they didn't charge them to play it on the PlayStation 5. So basically, if you owned the PlayStation 4 version, you can play it on the PlayStation 5 for free. And we know that not even Sony does that in all of their games. Some of their games, if you owned it on the PlayStation 4 and you want to get the PlayStation 5 version of it, they charge you a fee. It was a pretty good back and forth exchange. I got to say that this lawyer, he's extremely aggressive. And if you heard the case today, then you know exactly what I'm talking about. His manner of questioning Phil Spencer was kind of condescending at times, and I found him to be very rude and extremely aggressive. Now, the FTC is back to questioning about the Switch and Bethesda. Do you anticipate Call of Duty on the Switch will look the same to players if they were playing it on the Xbox Series X? I think it will play great on the Switch, said Phil Spencer. I don't think it will look the same. Now, the FTC wants to know if Microsoft has done any economic analysis of Nintendo in terms of the Activision Blizzard deal, presumably because creating a version or a new version of Call of Duty Switch will be costly. The FTC once again wants to determine that the Switch is separate from its high-performance console market. Xbox exclusive games is another key part of the FTC's case, where the regulators believe Microsoft will make Activision Blizzard games exclusive to Xbox in a move it deems anti-competitive. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, I don't want to give away too many spoilers because obviously I'm ahead of what I'm saying right now, but my gosh, a bomb was dropped today in court, a drop the mic moment. Something happened where, man, the FTC just lost, in my opinion. But we're going to keep going forward. I'm going to try to hold my excitement here. The FTC references February 2021 email between Xbox Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, Phil Spencer about to announce Bethesda's acquisition. Now, I'm going to just kind of skim through this part here because, like I said, it's really hard to go through everything in this video, but they went in deep. We're going to do a recap at the top here. I'm just going to go to the part where I really want to get into. Here we go. Phil Spencer swears under oath that he won't pull Call of Duty from the PlayStation 5. And this is that moment that I was telling you guys about. This came out of nowhere. And the way that it was done, it was so organic, it was so natural, and it was said under oath that Sony can no longer contest it. Spencer knows that Microsoft would suffer damage from going back on its word in any case. Now, he was talking about to the judge, because the judge was asking questions. He said, listen, if we were to remove this off of the PlayStation, after we said that we were going to leave it on there, it would harm the Xbox brand. A lot of gamers would be upset with us. We would lose profits. It would look really bad for us, and it would be irreversible damage. I think, as we've seen in preparation for this, that gamers are active and a vocal group. Us pulling Call of Duty from the PlayStation, in my view, would create irreparable harm for the Xbox brand. And she said, are you saying this under oath? And he said, I would raise my hand. I would do whatever it takes. He told this to Judge Corley in the court. And this is where he swore it under oath. My commitment is, my testimony is, I will continue to ship future versions of Call of Duty on Sony's PlayStation 5. That's just crazy. So Sony is saying that Microsoft is not going to ship that game. They're going to pull that game off the PlayStation 5. Sony refused Microsoft's offer, refused their contracts that were sent out to them. An internal document said they're not worried about it, but in the public, they come out and complain to all the regulatory boards. And now you have Phil Spencer, the head of Xbox, swearing under oath that he will keep future versions and all the old versions, because he said that earlier when he was talking today, of Call of Duty on the PlayStation 5. I don't know, that seals it for me, honestly, because this whole case is really about Call of Duty and Microsoft removing that game from the PlayStation. And you have Phil Spencer under oath saying that he wouldn't do that. Under oath. You do not understand the gravity of that, because he said it under oath. If he doesn't do it, he can be sued. Microsoft can be sued. They said this under oath. They have to keep their word. So let's do a little recap here, because they did take a lunch break, and I'm recording it on said lunch break, to be honest with you guys. The FTC questioned Spencer about Nintendo Switch, FPS, teraflops, and lots more. Phil Spencer is asked whether Xbox lost the console war, to which he responds the console war is a social construct, which I found kind of funny, and he doesn't want to count the community out, but the Xbox is in third place. Sony is an aggressive competitor that spends its revenue on doing things to try and reduce Xbox survival on the market, and to note, some of that money is acquired from Microsoft on the games that they ship on their platform. Microsoft has thought about skipping PlayStation for Activision games, even considered making Microsoft Dungeons an exclusive, but they explained why it doesn't make sense for Call of Duty and why they actually didn't make it exclusive Minecraft Dungeons and shipped it on the PlayStation 5. PlayStation 5 dev kits were held back from Microsoft, and the FTC said, oh, so that's why you don't have an optimized version for the PlayStation 5. And he's like, well, we don't even have an optimized version for the Xbox Series X or X either. We just didn't get around to it. And the development kit kind of played its role in that, because we didn't know if it would run on the PlayStation 5 because we didn't have the dev kit. So we couldn't make it as good on our platform because we have to make sure it runs on the PlayStation 5. So they held everybody's development down. And once again, the FTC falling flat on their face throwing crap at the wall, trying to see what sticks. An internal email chain between Xbox Sarah Bond, Matt Booty, and Phil Spencer reveals how much Microsoft planned to talk about the Bethesda acquisition as making Xbox stronger. Phil Spencer won't confirm Elder Scrolls is going to be an Xbox exclusive, and it sounds like it's still many, many years away. Yeah, so he did talk about that, and he said the game's so far out that we can't even think about that at this moment. A final call hasn't really been made on that game, and like we don't even know when it's coming out. It's many, many moons away. So whatever, man. FTC grasping at straws. Microsoft won't degrade Call of Duty on the PlayStation. He made a commitment that he wouldn't do that. That's not something that we do. It reflects bad on us, especially when Sony has the biggest market in the world. Why are we going to put a game purposely on their system that looks worse, that runs worse, that reflects bad on us as a developer, as a publisher, as Microsoft, as Xbox? And of course, what we just heard, Spencer swearing under oath that he won't pull Call of Duty from the PlayStation. And that's insane, man. That's insane. That's it. It's a wrap. I don't need to cover it anymore. Nah, of course, we got to wait and see how things played out. But I got to be honest with you. Phil's testimony was excellent today. And I know there's a few things that I'm probably missing. Like I said, it's really hard to try to cover all this stuff. Okay, when they came back from lunch, they were talking about the state of the games industry revenue, and they were kind of focusing on the mobile console revenue. Now, Phil Spencer went on to say that mobile has grown to become a #1 gaming platform on the planet. Now, he also talked about some of the issues that he had bringing it to smaller devices and phone screens, such as an example. And it turns out it didn't really work too good. Latency was an issue, and things like game fonts weren't designed for the tiny screen. And Microsoft never solved the controller problem. And yesterday, Microsoft contended that streaming is more of a feature than a separate product right now. So they were really hoping to bring this to mobile devices, to handhelds, I should say, tablets and whatnot. And it wasn't really feasible. Now, it does work good on like a Rogue Ally and a Steam Deck if you modify it. And there are some other cloud-specific devices. But overall, there's not a huge adoption rate for it. And people aren't really playing these games on their mobile phone. Like, there are a very small amount of gamers that are using this service. They also tried to buy Zynga. Now, this came to my surprise. I don't know, maybe some of you guys knew this, but I didn't know that Microsoft tried to buy Zynga. So basically, Phil Spencer said that they wanted to get Zynga, but given their very small starting space in the mobile business, this would have been a good way to get into that. Also, he confirmed that Microsoft acquired Bethesda after hearing Starfield would be exclusive to the PlayStation. So that is crazy. You got a lot of PlayStation guys right now upset saying that Starfield should have been coming to the PlayStation. Why is it not coming to the PlayStation? It was going to be exclusive to the PlayStation. So Sony negotiated a deal to make this game exclusive. And Microsoft, Phil Spencer says, you know what? We're just going to buy the whole studio. We're tired of Sony just buying up all of these games. And that's kind of the theme of today's case, or I should say hearings. You see a lot of how Sony goes out and gets these third-party deals and locks these games into their ecosystem. And yet you have Sony out here crying that Microsoft is going to do what actually they do to Microsoft. And once again, we got to remember that they are the top of the food chain. They are the #1 market leader. And by the law, you cannot defend them. You have to allow competitors to compete. And Microsoft is showing over and over again that they're not the #1 competitor and that they're just trying to compete. So this case, it's falling flat on their face, honestly. And we have some more bombshells coming up. I can't wait to get into it, but we got to go step by step here. So Phil Spencer revealed that one of the key reasons behind the acquisition of Bethesda parent company ZeniMax potential Starfield PlayStation exclusivity. Speaking to the FTC versus Microsoft hearing today, Phil Spencer revealed that Sony regularly pays competitors to skip our platform, and Microsoft felt it needed to own Bethesda to compete. Now, he goes on to say when they got ZeniMax, they were thinking about the deal that was done for Deathloop and Ghostwire, and for them to pay Bethesda not to ship those games on Xbox. Phil Spencer said the discussion about Starfield, when we heard that Starfield was potentially also going to end up skipping Xbox, we can't be in the position as a third place console where we fall further behind on our content ownership, so we had to secure content to remain viable in the business. And this bolsters Microsoft's claims. And remember, once again, Sony is the market leader. Microsoft is trying to compete. Okay, we're going to skip over some parts of this. We're going to try to get it in a recap. It's just a lot of reading to do. So we're going to go on Spencer talking about his relationship with Sony Xbox chief Phil Spencer says that he had a call with Sony CEO, I'm not going to be able to say his name, Yoshida, shortly after announcing Microsoft's Activision deal. I got positive affirmation from Yoshida-san, said Spencer. He also had a slightly longer call with PlayStation chief Jim Ryan, but their outcome was similar. He understood the rationale behind the deal. I think the email exchange showed he understood this was not about PlayStation. So you have Jim Ryan saying to Phil Spencer, saying, yeah, that's okay, we understand, okay, thank you for guaranteeing that these games are going to remain on PlayStation and the deals are going to remain in place. We appreciate it. And behind the scenes, he's telling people that, yeah, we wish this didn't happen, but we're going to be okay. It's not going to do anything to us. It's barely going to leave a dent in us. We're still going to be the market leaders. And at the same breath, going over to all the different regulatory boards and complaining and saying otherwise. And I feel that the FTC is really losing this case. Now, you guys got to understand this about court cases. Get out of your feelings. Forget about the fanboy stuff. It's about the facts and the rule of law. The rule of law is that the top person, or I should say the market leader, cannot be protected from the competitors. It is illegal for the market leader to prevent the competitors from competing. This is the law. Now, you have to prove your case. And the FTC is not proving their case. One, it's been pretty much affirmed this whole hearing that Sony is the market leader and that Microsoft is not, and that in fact, they're in third place. We now know that in order to compete in the console space, you need to have exclusives. Microsoft is going out and acquiring studios so they can have exclusives. Microsoft also said that certain games, it doesn't make sense to remove it off of other platforms because we lose too much money. We're not going to recoup what we paid for this company. We put this all into our analysis of it, how much this will make us in the long run. And this was never even a thought to remove this game from the PlayStation. Now, the FTC is worried about Microsoft making Activision Blizzard games exclusive, but Phil Spencer said competitors have a much larger collection of exclusives. Sony has a significant catalog of exclusive games. It's dramatically larger than what we have on Xbox today. Both Sony and Nintendo's first party is stronger than Xbox. He also argues exclusives are just a normal part of gaming business now. It is an established part of the console business, and Sony and Nintendo are very strong with their exclusive games. Sony also has an exclusive marketing deal with Final Fantasy 16, says Spencer. And we know that game just came out. It's exclusive on the PlayStation. And the way he said it was that Sony paid not to have this game on Xbox, because that's essentially what they're doing. It's a third-party game. And Sony paid them not to make a version for Xbox. But Sony's here crying that Microsoft Xbox is trying to compete and is buying out studios and is going to make games exclusive on their platform, when you have evidence currently, a game that just came out, that Sony is doing what they're accusing Microsoft is going to do in the future with these Activision games. Okay, so we're just going to do a little recap. Microsoft found very limited success of making mobile games outside of Minecraft. Microsoft tried to buy Zynga to rectify its missed mobile gaming opportunity. Microsoft acquired Bethesda after hearing Starfield would be a PlayStation exclusive, but Microsoft said, screw that, we have to be able to compete, we're just going to buy the studio. And that was a boss move. They took shots at Apple and the way that they run their stores and how they take most of the revenue from their games. And also Microsoft and Sony discussing their Activision deal with a positive affirmation from Sony's CEO. And a lot of people forget that that was actually public. Sony publicly, thanked or congratulated Microsoft and also reiterated that the future versions of Call of Duty will be on their platform to their player base. So this was all public information. And once again, we have Jim Ryan going out there and crying to all the regulatory boards. So right now we're going to go over to Florian's coverage. Okay, so now we're on Florian Miller's page, and we're going to go into his coverage. So he goes, the FTC is trying to get Phil Spencer to concede that he can't really swear that he's going to make Call of Duty available on the PlayStation for a long haul, as there will be some unknowns such as future contract terms. FTC wants Phil Spencer to confirm that he will ship Call of Duty only subject to reaching an agreement. Phil Spencer says the goal is to ship out all the future versions, but he can't even know whether there will be future versions. He also went on to say, I don't even know if there's going to be a PlayStation 6. He goes, I would assume there's going to be one. And if there is one, we're going to ship it on that console. Now, the FTC lawyer, he was really trying to get Phil Spencer to say something that's not true. He was trying to catch him in a lie. And it was very evident and it was very desperate. And the judge was kind of taking notice to this. And Phil Spencer's answer was basically, if Sony will allow us to have this game on the PlayStation consoles, we will have it there. We don't need a special agreement for it. There's a normal agreement that's in place for all games on different consoles. It's a very standard procedure. The FTC was pointing out there was a different procedure done for this game. And he says, yes, because Sony, they were asking for a lot more guarantees, so we had to make up a special contract for them. And I've said this many times. They can agree to that at any time they want. They don't want to sign that contract because it makes their argument null and void here at this case. That's the simple reason. I guarantee you, when this case is done and the preliminary injunction is denied, Sony's going to sign that contract with the quickness. Better believe that. Now, the FTC was also asking Phil Spencer to explain, go into details, what PS version, and he went and reiterated again, listen, I'm not playing any games. I'm not saying it verbatim, but this is what he said. I'm not playing any games for the PlayStation 5, for future PlayStation consoles, as long as Sony will let us ship it on their system. And I gotta be honest with you guys here, and Flurry Miller also picked this up. It really seems like the FTC is negotiating for Sony because these are binding agreements. So they're like, okay, so what about Diablo? Huh? Diablo coming in? You're going to give us the DLC? What about the split? You swearing on the oath you're going to give us a 50-50 split? Like, what is going on here? It's so unprofessional. It really, really is. And at one point, this is what the FTC said to Phil Spencer. And I'm going to go over to 3Bit's post here. Now, the FTC said, so this ABK deal would take you out of the third place in the market, right? Phil Spencer replied, this is not our goal, no. We want to expand into mobile. The FTC, so it's a write-off? And Phil's like, what? Your business, is it a write-off? Phil goes, I don't get what you're saying. Then the FTC said, let's move on. And I gotta be honest with you, they were really grasping at straws. They're really desperate. They're trying very hard, and it's evident. It's different when you're doing kind of procedures in the court and it's not so evident, but it's obvious here what they're trying to do. Now, as we go further in, you're going to see that the judge just got fed up with the line of questioning from the FTC. Now, Phil Spencer confirmed exclusive deals with third-party publishers are more expensive on Xbox due to market shares, compensating publishers for skipping a platform. Weingarten suggested it was contradictory to them paying $7 billion for Activision. And like, Florian's right here. Apples to oranges. It's two separate things. Like, I don't understand what the FTC was trying to do. I really don't. They're so unprofessional. They were so not prepared for this case with their information. It just looked really foolish. And I'm not being biased here. I'm really going into this objectively. Like everything that I do, everything that I post on this channel. Yes, I like Xbox. Yes, I do want this deal to go through. But if something is not looking good, I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to report the news just as it is. Now, Phil Spencer explained that it didn't make sense for them to pay an exclusive third-party deal. It's just an expense to get an exclusive. But if they buy a company, they get the assets, which just makes complete sense. Now, Judge Corley is tired of the FTC's unreasonableness and stupidities. When the FTC lawyer wanted Phil Spencer to also make a commitment under oath for making games available on the cloud, she cut it off and saying she doesn't need that. Man, not good. And another time today, she also cut them off. She kind of redirected him with one of his questions. I can't remember what was actually said because it was hard to hear, but you could tell she was kind of fed up with some of the FTC's line of questioning. And I was tweeting it all over Twitter that this guy was, a real hole. I don't want to swear on YouTube here. I try to keep the channel clean, but this guy was not really nice. He was very aggressive. He was very condescending. I just got to be honest with you. Now, he goes on to say in the courtroom, people were wowed by that. Judge Corley was right. The FTC is obviously desperate because they're losing this big time and they're now behaving ridiculously and in unreasonable ways. The FTC should at least maintain a certain minimum standard when losing. And I agree, man. They looked really unprofessional. Okay, now we're back to Tom Warren's coverage. I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm trying to compress all of this stuff in, so some stuff might overlap a little bit. At the end, we'll do a recap, and I'll try to get in as much of today's proceedings as possible. Now, to be honest with you guys, I really try to cram all this information in and get it out to you guys as soon as possible. So one thing I ask from you guys is just to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and share this out. Now, we're back to the FTC and Microsoft arguing about the Switch, and it's getting rather tedious now. The FTC has console props in the courtroom to try and show the Xbox Series X and S and PS5 are very different than the Nintendo Switch. Phil Spencer said it's incorrect to say Nintendo isn't a competitor, and he comments on the visual appearance of the consoles in the courtroom. The PS5 and Xbox Series X shipped at the same time. From a form factor, these two functionally look more equivalent. Now, we all know that, yes, the Nintendo Switch is not as powerful as the Xbox or the PlayStation 5, but it is the current Nintendo console. It is outselling Microsoft's console. According to the FTC, because today they also showed some of the numbers or talked about it, the Nintendo Switch is outselling the PlayStation 5 as well. So they're just killing their whole argument. The Nintendo Switch is a current generation console, and Phil Spencer pointed that out. And once again, this is back to their closing arguments that they're going to make, that Call of Duty cannot run on the Nintendo Switch, and that Microsoft is lying about bringing that game to Nintendo. That's what they're trying to get at, and they're going to fall flat because they're not even proving their case here, and they're going to argue it in closing arguments, and they haven't proved it. And this judge, believe you me, she is paying attention. I could tell by the questions that she's asking. Now, Spencer is teaching the FTC how acquisitions work. You can tell Xbox chief Phil Spencer is frustrated by the FTC's questions here. He remains calm, but he shoots back to illustrate his knowledge on his financials and acquisitions. Now, you have a $70 billion upfront payment to Activision, right? Asked the FTC lawyers. Phil Spencer responds, no, when you acquire something, it's not a payment. It's really a transfer of cash into an asset called Activision, that you believe it retains its value that you have acquired. It's incorrect financially. And he was schooling it, and it's so hard to put it into words, honestly, guys. I really wish you could all be listening to it. I know some of you guys did. Now they brought some guy on stand from Google, and I gotta say, this was really boring. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with everything. I'm just gonna give you the notes from it. But it was really boring. And basically, he was saying that Microsoft put them out of business because they didn't have all the exclusives and they couldn't compete with them. That was basically the gist of it. And that Microsoft, has the Windows API, and they didn't use that. They used Linux, or they were using Vulkan, something to that. It's just the FTC grasping at straws again. But the cross-examination, I gotta be honest with you guys, it just destroyed everything that the FTC was trying to build, as weak as it was. They asked, hey, do you have competitors? He says, I don't know what you mean. Come on, you don't know what she means? He said, what about the consoles? Do they compete with Stadia, PC, cloud services such as NVIDIA, xCloud? Come on. He had to answer yes to all those questions. Stadia was shut down because they couldn't get AAA content. That was according to him. They had a lot of AAA content on there. But at the same time, he's also helping Microsoft's lawyers because you know what? AAA content, it is important, isn't it? You couldn't survive because you didn't have AAA content? Is that why Stadia dropped out of the race? Why they couldn't compete? I'll be honest with you guys, I don't really think that was the complete reason. They had a really crappy business model. But this also helps Microsoft. So once again, I don't know what the FTC is doing, honestly. This was a poor decision on the FTC's part. In fact, everyone that they called, they have not been able to present their case. And it's all about proving your case. That's the thing with US litigation. You have to prove it. They're not doing that here. And I got to be honest with you guys. Some of the questions that they were asking today, they got them from Twitter, I swear. The judge cutting off the FTC lawyer a few times today. It was just not a good look for the FTC. I'm so flabbergasted. I really am. I'm just in shock that their evidence is so poor and their presentation was horrible. I was impressed with Phil Spencer's performance and his answers. And he had a lot more bravado than I thought he had. I gotta be honest with you. That surprised me. He fired back, and he fired back with accuracy. And that accuracy was the facts. He said that Sony pays to keep games off of Xbox. Sony uses the money that they make from Microsoft when Microsoft puts a game on their platform to put Microsoft at a disadvantage. That recently, they just released a game, Final Fantasy 16, that they paid for not to be on Xbox. Every claim that the FTC made, Phil Spencer shut them down. It was quite evident that Microsoft is in third position, that they're trying to compete, and they've been trying to do this for 20 years. They are proving their case. The FTC is not. This is only the second day. We still have Satya Nadella to testify. It's going to get crazy, man. I thought it was funny that Phil Spencer said the console wars is a social construct. And we're going to be seeing t-shirts for sure. The FTC pissed off the judge as Judge Corley cut them off when they were questioning Phil Spencer. And I really feel like the judge understands the basics of this case. And I think she's going to make a fair and quick ruling. I don't think it's going to take a long time to rule in this case, especially at the rate or the evidence that the FTC is producing at this time. They're really not proving their case. They're making it easy for her. Phil Spencer swore under oath that these games will continue to be on the PlayStation 5. And when they came back from the break, he reiterated it. He probably looked at Twitter and saw people saying, hey, he only said the PlayStation 5, man. So that means the PlayStation 6 is not going to be on it. And he said, I'm not playing games. For people out there that think I'm playing games, I'm not. Those games will come on the PlayStation 5, whatever future PlayStation consoles, the PlayStation 6, whatever. I don't know if it exists, but if it exists, it'll be on there, providing that Sony allows us to do that. So I don't know what to tell you guys. That's their argument, basically. Call of Duty is going to be removed from the PlayStation. Microsoft has offered them contracts that they don't want to sign. They said under oath that they will bring it to their console for 10 years, which is unheard of in the industry. You can't tell me that you think the FTC is winning this case and that their evidence have merits. I don't know why they brought this guy in from Google. He did absolutely nothing. They have such a weak case and they're grasping here. And I think the last evidence that they're going to call in is Jim Ryan. And we know that Jim Ryan is lying. The evidence is already there and his video testimony hasn't even happened yet. And we already know that he's lying. Internal documents say otherwise, what we're going to hear on, I presume, Tuesday. So the judge said that they're coming back Tuesday. The court case should be wrapping up on Thursday, that she wants her final arguments to be heard in her court on Thursday. And I guess by the weekend, we should have a ruling by next weekend. I think it's going to be a quick and swift ruling. And right now, I got to say, it's definitely going to go in Microsoft's favor. Now, anything can happen next week. But as of right now, if the court case was to end right now, the FTC has not proven their case. Anyways, I want to know what you guys think. There was a lot of information that dropped today. Microsoft got Bethesda after hearing Starfield would be exclusive to the PlayStation. That was a boss move. Microsoft tried to buy Zynga. Microsoft revealed that Sony money hacks a lot of games to keep them off of the Xbox platform. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. I'll be back with more coverage on Tuesday. Please like, share this video out, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.